Welcome, everybody, to Popcorn and Possibilities. This is episode number deuce, number 2.
Ooh, baby!
We did it. We've done a bunch of others, but those are in the archives. This is what matters. So, and I'm definitely blasting out the speaker right now, so I'm going to tone it down. We're here to do a little breakdown of another 90s high school rom-com, I guess you want to call. Problematic rom-com for sure.
Yeah, this one's got issues, fellas.
So before we get into that, let's have a little recap of the week we've been having here. So I have been on a little bit of a reading rampage, I guess you could
Oh, yeah?
say,
What are you reading?
recently. So I just finished a LRPG, which is I learned as a literary RPG, a role-playing game. Yeah. So if you're looking for something kind of fun, funny, it's got dark humor, so just a warning, I guess. It's wacky, it's wild, it's a crazy fantasy world with like everything involved from like aliens to goblins to
Oh,
wizards to
boy.
whatever the fuck. Yeah,
What's it called?
it's called Dungeon Crawler Carl. Definitely a fun one. I also am about halfway through now the Mark Hoppus story, the
Oh,
Fahrenheit 182.
yeah. How was that?
I like it. I mean, some people have knocked it saying it's not really that much information that's not like already on a Wikipedia page. Which I kind of understand, but at the same time, like, I think we're just so gossip needy that
Yeah.
it's like he's said a multitude of times like I'm not getting into the drama with like what was exactly said with him and Tom.
Yeah.
And then, some people said it was whining because when he was in Plus 44, he's saying like it just wasn't the same as Blink 182, and I'm like, well, what do you want him to say? Like, oh, I just had a shitty time, but like I'll have to bounce back. Like, it's got to be gut wrenching to be like, you went from the highest point you could probably be in music to like almost restarting. And
Right. And also, what is wrong with people? Isn't this supposed to be his autobiography? If the man wants to whine, can't he whine a bit?
yeah,
Can't
it's
we do
his
a bit of
story.
whinging? What the
Right.
hell? Right, like, he's writing this for himself. You know what? Whatever.
It's really,
Whatever.
yeah, but I am enjoying it personally. I kind of feel like it is like you're talking to a buddy and they're just telling you their stories of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what they went through in life.
And Mark's been through a lot. Like, there were
Yeah.
bigger. And I'm not trying to be that guy. I
Hmm.
know the Blink 182 breaking up literally devastated me. I was not the same after that until they got back together. Now I'm normal again. Happy to report. No, I'm kidding. But like, the man survived cancer. I think there are bigger things for him to tackle and unpack than the falling out he had with Tom that was very public, and many of us already know enough. We don't need to know exactly what was said or all the nitty-gritty of what the argument or the falling out was. But I would much rather read him diving into and sharing his story on survival and how that impacted him and changed his perspective and the future and all of those things than to focus on the fact that him and Tom had a fight, a decade ago or whatever it is. And now
Yeah.
it's seemingly water under the bridge because they're back, they're making music, they're touring, it's great.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I like it because you got some insight on what his childhood was like and his upbringing and all of that, and it does like I get into the start of how they even became friends to begin with. But you kind of knew because like even in the very early on, he talks about how they've always had this like friendly competition where it was who could come up with the better chorus, who could come up with the better song, and obviously a decade of doing that, you're gonna get to a point where there's friction. We're just so like we just want these like what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Salacious,
Yeah,
scandalous. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
we want the
Right.
scandalous story. Oh, he had sex with Tom's wife or some
Right.
shit. Like, it's just like let it go. I don't know.
I don't all I know is whenever I've read an autobiography about somebody famous, it's been a hell of a lot more interesting than anything I could put in a book.
Yeah.
So,
The app Goodreads, by far, those comments of of people are just the worst.
unhinged.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I read some of the stupidest shit. It was just there was a book I was looking at. You know the show Altered Carbon that's on
Love
Netflix?
Walter Carbon, yes.
Yeah, so I didn't realize it was a book, but I'm always like late to that game. Anyway, literally like I think it's the second or third comment on that book, and this girl is just like, he went on for 2 paragraphs talking about his dick and jerking off. I don't need this. End of the story. Like, just I don't care. It obviously did. Just say the book didn't resonate with me. End of story. Or
Or
don't leave
I
anything.
have a thought. Here's a thought. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
Shut the book, put it
Shut the
down,
fuck up.
and shut the fuck up and move on. I just this is not an airport. You don't need
Yeah.
to announce your departure if it's not for you. That's fine. We respect it, we appreciate it, but I'm a firm believer. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're gonna love it. You might not watch the whole thing, you might not read the whole thing, whatever. But you owe it to yourself to form your own opinion because Brian, you hit the nail on the head. Like different things resonate with, mean something to, impact in a massive way different people. That's life. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a good segue to go into our movie.
How did Never Been Kissed impact me? A memoir. A memoir.
A memoir. Uh, Never Been Kissed. I have never seen this movie, and
I have like 1,000 times.
y- is this a Disney movie or is this no? Right?
I don't think it is. No.
I missed
I
that
don't know
beginning
why it's
part.
on Disney Plus. It's very strange to me that Disney Plus currently has the rights.
Disney owns Fox Studios now, or
Oh,
20th
interesting.
Century or whatever.
Oh, okay,
So
okay,
I
okay.
think like it could be that. Um, is why. But I'm gonna start off with the scores, and then if you want to go into the infamous recaps, and then we'll go from there.
Let's do it.
All right. So I just want to say off the top of the bat, I was feeling some hate on these ratings because they're already starting higher than She's All That, and I'm on the She's All That team. But anyway, Rotten Tomatoes was 55%. Popcorn score was 69%. High. IMDb is 6.0 out of 10. Meta is 60. And user is 5.7.
Well, with the exception of the popcorn, pretty calibrated. Now, we said this last week, we're going to say it again this week. This movie came out in 1999. So if you've not yet seen it, chances are you're not planning on it. But if this has been on your I have to watch list and you don't want it spoiled, please, jump forward or maybe come back to this episode after you've seen the movie because we're going to get into spoilers now.
Yeah, please send us an email or a comment too if this is on your list because I I would just love to know what else is on that list if this movie is on it. But
So I will say Never Been Kissed more so I think than 10 Things I Hate About You, which we're going to get into in a future episode, and She's All That. This is I don't know that this movie would be made today in much different ways than the other two. Which we talked about some things and She's All That were a little like
yeah,
in a movie, really, but this one has some like. All right, we're just gonna get into it.
yeah, just
And here
yeah,
we go.
yeah. Hmm.
So this story follows Josie Geller, who is the youngest copy editor for the Chicago Sun-Times, and she's very happy in her world. She's incredibly intelligent. They make that very clear from the beginning of the movie. But she from the onset of our introduction to her character, wants to be a reporter and a writer. She wants to be out in the field. She wants to be getting the stories. You know what? It bears taking a moment to appreciate the cast of this movie because there are some heavy hitters. So you've got Josie, who is played by Drew Barrymore. Her boss Gus is played by John C. Riley, and this is probably the most serious of a role I have ever seen John C. Riley in, which is so weird to say.
Gangs in New
But
York.
fine, all right, yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, didn't mean
But
to stump you, but I was like,
no,
that's the
no,
one that
that
always, yeah,
that's a good point. But I'm used to him in like Step Brothers and playing Dr. Steve Brule and all the
Talladega
street.
Nights and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he usually plays such a comedic role that it's almost ridiculous.
yeah,
And in
yeah,
this one, he doesn't. He's just like a regular ass guy, which caught me off guard on a rewatch because the first time I didn't know who John C. Riley was when I
I mean,
first saw
he's
the movie.
so young and like so
Yeah,
skinny at
yeah.
the that.
Yep. So you've got Drew Barrymore, you've got John C. Riley, you've got Josie's best friend Anita, played by Molly Shannon, who I feel like this late '90s, early 2000s era was her heyday.
Yes,
Um,
Superstar, right?
Octavia
Was her
Spencer. I'm sorry.
Superstar was her, right?
Superstar was Molly
Shit.
Shannon.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. Okay.
You've got Octavia Spencer randomly in this
Mhm.
movie. She is also friends with Anita and with Josie. You've got David Arquette, who plays Rob, Josie's brother. And again, David Arquette was in his prime in this mid to late 90s, early 2000s time frame.
Yes.
And then within the high school casting, Jessica Alba was there. There was You pointed out some random James Franco cameos.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have a name. He's just a random
He's like
background
in and out.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lily Sobieski plays Josie's friend Aldis um
These.
in the high school, and she wasn't in a whole lot of things, but after this movie came out, I remember her being top billed cast in a couple of movies. Um but there's a lot of popular actors and actresses, especially for the time, in this movie. So, did I miss anybody? Was there anybody that you're
No, I think you got
okay,
everybody.
cool.
Yeah, Lily Sobieski. Like, I really thought she was in so much more. I don't
More?
know.
Yeah.
When I looked in her, and I don't mean to knock her. It's just like her face is so recognizable that like
Yeah, I
I
agree.
thought she was like on a TV series or something. But when I looked, I'm like, don't know this. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Um, really, I feel like Drew Barrymore, John C. Riley, Molly Shannon, Octavia Spencer, David Arquette are probably the biggest. Jessica Alba was very big for a time.
But not
Um,
at that
but
time.
she's been out. I feel like she's been out of the Hollywood scene for a little bit. I know she has. I think she owns a company for like child products, perhaps
She something like that. I
something
think.
like
I
that.
think you're
Yeah.
right.
But anyway, so Josie's the copy editor. She really wants to be a reporter. She keeps asking Gus to send her out into the field, and he's like, "No, you're a copy editor. Like you barely can function in society. I'm not sending you out into the field." Until
But
one day,
also before you go on, like the assistant, like
oh
why
my
was
God,
this assistant
Merkin,
Merkin?
Merkin,
Merkin ain't jerking, he's
Jerkin,
lurking.
he's Jerkin.
Like what a fucking line.
That Merkin ain't jerkin, he's working is one of the best takeaways from these '90s films, in my opinion. I think it's so fucking hilarious. So she wants to be a reporter. Gus says no. They go to a boardroom meeting where the big boss, Rigford, um, basically you walk in on him talking to another reporter about what a great job he did on a story. But then he goes on to say that their rival paper did a better job on the story and he fires him on the spot. But then he says to Josie that he wants her to go into the field and do this feature, which is supposed to be based on him not knowing his own kids, what do we really know about high school kids these days? And he wants her to go back and do a semester in high school. And originally, her boss and Gus and Anita try to talk her out of it. They're like, "No, you can't do this." And she's like, "I can do this. I want to do this. Please let me do this." And they say, "Okay, fine." So
Yeah. Yeah, my first issue was the high school thing because they're talking her, oh, like, "You don't wanna do this article, you don't wanna do this." She's like, "Yes, I wanna go back, I wanna go back." Like, for as scarring as what you find out with her high school life was, like, I feel like that would stick with you where you would never, like, I would never wanna go back to high school.
I wouldn't either, but as seeing how passionate she was about being a field reporter and getting to write a story,
Mhm.
I don't know. I buy it that she would have put that aside to say, I get to write my story now. I'm going to do whatever it takes to show I can do it.
Mm.
And you know, her high school experience, you come to learn. We'll kind of sum up her high school experience now because
Yeah.
otherwise we'll have to interrupt the plot every 3 seconds to
Okay,
throw in a
yeah.
story.
True, true.
Basically, they talk you through the fact that her brother Rob, who we're going to meet shortly, was very popular in high school. He coined the nickname for her Josie Grossi, and it stuck. And she was basically like the biggest loser in high school. She had a crush on the most popular guy in school. Um, One of the more traumatic things that happens to her that they show you is she writes a poem for him. Not unlike another movie we're going to be watching soon, but she writes a poem for him in their English class. And then he says he's going to ask her to prom. So the scene where they kind of show this, they show her reading the poem in the English class. Everyone's making fun of her, but she's like deadlocked on Billy Prince, who is the most popular guy in her high school. And then her best friend comes running into the library and says, "What is something you thought you really want to happen but thought would never ever happen?" And she says, "I'm the most popular girl in school and Billy Prince is asking me to the prom." And the best friend just looks at her and says, "Yes." And then she's like, "Billy Prince is asking you to the prom." And Drew Barrymore's like, "Why?" And she's like, I literally a true girl, I don't know.
Mhm.
And they celebrate it, they get all excited. Josie gets her dress. You know, she gets all ready to get picked up for prom. Um, she walks outside, waves at Billy, who's coming in the limo. He throws eggs at her and her house, and he leaves. And it was all just a prank. And that scene is particularly heartbreaking because she's crying on her stoop. Because, like, who wouldn't? It's so, for anyone who went through any experience in their high school or middle school life where they were either bullied, were pranked in a cruel way like that, or even in its smallest measure, you had a crush or feelings for somebody that went unreturned, and kind of having it forced down your throat that they weren't returned, be it in a bombastically cruel way as this is shown, or just, people saying, "Oh, he's with this other girl, like he would never look twice at you," whatever it is. It just, that is one of those moments that I feel like it's hard to watch and not feel something for
Mhm.
Josie in that moment. But then it's even worse because you hear her mom go, "Oh, Josie, is that you?" And she's coming to the door. So this poor girl, covered in eggs, crying her eyes out, is like scurrying off the porch because she doesn't want her mom to know this happened to her.
Right.
It's a very heartbreaking scene. But a lot of high school moments when it comes to Josie going back flash back to these memories. And I think your point is very fair. If you went through that much trauma throughout your high school career, why in the hell would you sign up to go back?
Yeah.
But I think Josie was at the point that she just wanted to write and she wanted to be able to get her story. So, whatever, she goes back to high school, which really is also problem number 1 in
Yes.
this movie. So, this 25-year-old copy editor just
Yeah.
goes and enrolls in high school. And they just let
Yeah. Which, if this is a I don't know, it's the Chicago Sun-Times, so pretty popular, I assume, of a newspaper in Chicago, whatever. Wouldn't there be some kinda meeting, like, with the principal and being like, "Hey, we're
Hey,
trying to
we're gonna
work on the
send this girl.
story.
Yes,
We're gonna
yes.
send this girl here, just throw in her a couple of classes, whatever." Also, sidebar, I thought Billy Prince was the security guard that, like, was checking all her items, and I thought that
Oh,
was gonna be, like, a full
a
circle thing,
tie-in?
like,
Oh, that's funny.
but, like, it never tied in, so I was like, "I guess I was just off on that," but I don't know. Because in the '90s, all those things, like, the bullies always get, like,
They're
the
just desserts.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so that was my first thing was, wouldn't there be some call to the school like, "Hey, we're gonna send in an undercover reporter"? Why would you just have this girl go and enroll? And also, like you said, does nobody in this town read the paper? Like, you mean to tell me not one teacher, not one student was like, "Hey, aren't you an editor for the Chicago Sun-Times?" Like, did nobody put that together?
No.
Seems very unbelievable to me. But anyway, so she enrolls in high school. And her first day, well, before her first day, you get to meet her brother, Rob, played by David Arquette. And he's like, "Why on earth do you want to go back to high school? That sounds like an awful idea." And she's like, "Yeah, high school did suck, but like, this is my chance to be a reporter, to do it all over again, to start over. I'm gonna do it right this time, whatever." So totally gets off on the wrong foot on the first day. Her outfit lives rent
Oh,
free in my brain. So picture platform heels, white jeans, which why? Some like, I don't even know how to describe the shirt she was wearing. It had like feather embellishments
yeah.
on the neck and sleeves. Very bizarre outfit choice. And nothing for nothing. She was supposed to be 25. It made her look like 40. The whole
Yeah, it
outfit
did make her
aged
look
her
older.
up. Yeah, it
I
was
didn't get the
just
makeup
not a good
either.
look.
The makeup was very
Yeah, I
weird.
agree. The makeup was, because she was wearing like a very nude lip, but it I don't know, just she looked very, what would you say, monochromatic? Like she was all one color. She looked very washed out with the white clothes. I don't know. It was just not a good look. But so she gets to the school in her brother's 1970 something Buick, I
Shit
think.
box, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember what
He
kind of car.
names
No,
it,
she
I
had a name.
forget. But
Bambi. Bambi
Bambi,
is the
yeah.
car's name, but I don't remember what kind of car it is. And she couldn't be more of a mess. And she shows up late to her first class. Her teacher makes her wear this giant sombrero because she's late. Like, just anything that could go wrong goes wrong on her first day. She gets to meet the most popular guy in school, who is named Guy, and Guy has some really great one-liners in this movie too.
But can we also admit that the name Guy has retired in the '90s? It stayed
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Thank goodness for that. Um, but you can tell like he's supposed to be the pretty boy, popular guy. He is not very kind to her. They establish who the popular girls are. They aren't very kind to her. Really, Aldis, Lily Sobieski's character. By the way, they only say her name once. This whole movie, one
Yeah.
time they say her name. So you got to
If you-
listen for it. Um, but she befriends her immediately. Um, they go grab something to eat after class. She gets invited to be in the denominators, which I guess is like mathletes for them. I don't know. But uh, before we get to further plot, we need to address that also on her first day of school, she meets another titular character in this movie, Sam Coulson, her English teacher. And it is very clear from the first class that there is chemistry between these two, which is one of the probably most prominent concerns in this movie. Is like, as the plot unfolds, there is a lot of time spent on the relationship between Josie and Mr. Coulson. And granted, she's 25. Coulson is much more in her age demographic than she is in a high school kid's age demographic.
Mhm.
But the fact remains that she was supposed to be a 17-year-old high school student as far as he was concerned.
And this is where tying back to what we had said earlier, like, what would have been the issue of saying to the teacher after class, like, "Hey, just to let you know,
I'm an
I'm
undercover
I'm an
reporter, I'm
under."
25. Right.
Yeah. Like,
Then there would have been no issues. There would have
yeah,
been 0 issues, but I don't know. I think that's a very uncomfortable territory, is relationships between students and teachers. Now, don't get me wrong. Did I have a crush on a teacher or 2 when I was going through my
yeah, who
middle and high
didn't?
school life? Yes, of
Yeah.
course I did. Come on, am I human? Do I not bleed? Of course I did.
Right.
However, I think to romanticize it in the movie the way they did, looking back on it with more mature eyes than the first time I saw it, I guess,
Doesn't do it
I don't know,
justice.
there's something very uncomfortable about watching it now.
Yeah.
For me,
No,
doesn't
I'm
make
with you
me
there.
love the movie any less. I still love this movie for the record,
Mhm.
but I can see how that could absolutely be kind of a turn off, I guess, for some people, because it is a weird dynamic to watch play out.
I can't, like, remember, but I just, like, made me it was, like, something in the movie about a failed class and not getting into college, and I just remember,
Oh,
like,
the gym
Jim,
teacher
that's what it
says,
was.
yeah,
Yeah, and I was just remembering, like, it was such a threat with, like, every class, like,
yeah,
"If you don't pass this, you're gonna fail," and then it was, like, the whole permanent record thing, which, like, was started for me. I remember teachers saying it as early as, like, elementary school.
elementary, yeah, me too.
Yeah, being like, "Oh, this is going on," and I'm like, "Where is that fucking permanent record?
Yeah,
I'd
what
like to read
permanent? Can
it
I see
now."
it? Yeah,
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 like, where can I get that? Because 'Cause I'd love to know what they thought about me at, like, 4th grade or
right,
whatever.
right, right.
But, okay, yeah, so go ahead.
All right, so then we get now we're gonna kind of do some patchwork, because that is the real setup for this movie.
Mhm.
Then you get to see, she's spending time with Lily Sobieski and the nerdy kids, but she has her place with them, and she's already having a better high school experience than she had the first time around. Um, but you get to see bits and pieces of their friendship. You get to see how mean the popular kids actually are. Like, they call Lily Sobieski's character Alpo throughout the whole movie, and Alpo, for those of you who don't know, I don't know if it still is, but it was a dog food brand.
I think it still
So
is.
I haven't had a dog in years, but they're just they basically spend some time shining light on that dynamic, and throughout these moments in time and these glimpses into what she's going through in high school, you get to see her calling back to Gus to report potential stories. And let's just say they all suck. And Gus is pissed. She pitches the cafeteria food, she pitches parties at the court, which is a parking lot where some of the popular kids hang out on the weekends. And I mean, even for me, as she's talking through what she wants to write about, I'm thinking I would
Like,
never
I
do
don't give a
that. It
fuck.
sounds boring as hell. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what Gus decides to do is to send her in with a little camera. And basically, Gus says he's going to do surveillance, he's going to watch her tapes, and he's going to find her story for her. And what they ultimately land on is that Coulson is going to be her story,
Mhm.
because it is very clear to everybody that he has a thing for Josie, and that there's that scandal, there's that sex sells. It's clearly the most interesting thing that is going on in her world. So he says, get in with the popular kids and get a story on Coulson. So Josie tells Rob that this is basically her objective, and Rob decides,
Which,
I you know
This is another one on the
This is
list.
another one of the big problems and issues with this movie. He decides he's gonna enroll in high school now because he was a very good baseball player when he was in high school, to the point that he allegedly could have gone pro, but then he got a bout of mono, I think Josie says, and he never followed through with that. He never went to college. He works at the Tiki Post as a, like, I guess, a manager. It's an office supply or a mail supply store, whatever.
Right.
But he is now inspired by Josie going back to school to go back himself and really make something of his life. So why? You're
Why?
almost 30, my guy. How are you passing as a high whatever? So he
He
enrolls in
doesn't
high
even
school.
look it. Yeah.
It's so strange. He enrolls in high school. Josie goes to a party, gets fed like a weed brownie.
Okay, so that
Chaos ensues.
another thing, I completely did not understand that. I was like, What is this? This is like a party? This looks like an establishment club." Like,
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it was a club. I don't know who in their right mind would just be giving out edibles in the middle of a club for free.
in
I
the
don't know.
90s?
In the 90s, yeah, very. But what I do find so funny about that, and please don't make fun of me, please remember I was young when I first saw this.
Mhm.
I didn't put together until many years after my first watch when he's talking about the cake and he says it's a special cake, it's a ganja cake. It has vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin T, H, and C.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
first time I saw that, I'm like, well, I know vitamin A and B and C. What are these other ones? And then obviously, as I got older, I was like, oh, that's actually very clever.
Yeah.
That's a line that got funnier as I got older to me. But just the whole scene goes to show that, like, Josie can't chill, man. She's all over the place. But ultimately, that next day is when Rob is like, I'm going to high school. We're going to fix this. It's going to be great.
At
So Rob,
least before you like at least with her getting high, they were like casual about it. I feel like in that era it was like you're smoking dope, like, and it was
yeah,
just like such a negative connotation.
yeah,
So I'll
yeah,
give it
that's true.
that.
That's true. Um,
So the brother enrolls back
the
in
brother
school.
enrolls, and he basically makes it his mission to get the popular kids to like Josie. So he tells Josie he's enrolled after she's waking up from this bender, and she's like, "You're not just gonna get popular in one day. That's like impossible." And sure enough, he does. He eats a vat of the nasty ass coleslaw up against, like, who they kind of make out to be, I guess, a big jock in the school, the blonde haired guy, who
Who like
definitely looks like he's 42 years old. Yeah, that, yeah.
and doesn't he plays the same role in every movie, like
Every movie,
barely
yeah.
talks cuz he's in
Yep.
Napoleon Dynamite, isn't he?
Yep.
And he
So everybody now is like, Rob is the coolest thing since sliced bread, and Rob is still great at basketball. So he starts, I mean, baseball, sorry, not
mm,
basketball. He
mm.
starts telling everybody on the baseball team, like, I used to date Josie. She's really cool. He tells Gibby, Kirsten, and Kristen, the three popular girls, Jessica Alba and her cronies, that her father invented X-Lax and she's the heiress to the X-Lax wealth and all this stuff.
And they have a yacht and whatever.
A yacht in France, yeah. So he says all of these very untrue things, but positive things to get people to think that Josie is awesome, basically. And you start to see her drifting away from the denominators and the kids she was hanging out with in the beginning. The popular kids start to be more accepting of her. And really, the turning point, and this is another thing we have to talk about. What is with movies from this time and themed prom?
Yeah, I don't know.
I
I
don't get it. I did not have a prom theme. And if I did, it was so negligible that I have zero memory of it whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't remember any kind of theme. But again, maybe that is just different in like different
Different areas,
states.
maybe? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so the turning point for Josie is she's in class, which is supposed to be her English class, but turns into a sex ed class, I guess.
Yeah,
And
it was very
her friend
weird.
Anita comes to see her from work, and Mr. Coulson thinks she's the sex ed teacher. So a very awkward teaching of the sex ed class ensues, whatever. So they're in the middle of this scene, and it comes over the announcement that their original theme for prom of Millennium, which, what?
What? Yeah.
What does that even mean? Or was it Y2K?
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was like
remember.
it was
Something like
Millennium.
that.
Mhm.
Millennium. Whatever.
Right.
What a lame theme, just saying. But their rival school, East Glen East, was also doing Millennium. So now they couldn't do Millennium anymore. And Guy stands up and he says, Josie. And I'm only quoting this because his delivery is so fucking funny, it kills me. Some girl goes, "That's not a theme." And he just looks at her and goes, "Thank you." Um and he says, "No, Josie's going to have the answer," because at this point Rob has hyped her up to be like this smart, cool, funny person.
Mhm.
And Josie actually comes up with a much cooler prom theme, in my opinion. But she says, "What about meant for each other couples throughout history?" So that becomes the theme of their prom. And everybody is like, "That's what a great idea. That's brilliant. You saved us, whatever." And that is really what shifts your moments in time from, you know, Josie at mathletes meets and doing math and making s'mores in the Bunsen burners in the science room, to going shopping with the popular kids and, watching the baseball team play and cheering for them and all of these things. So that is what really shows her kind of 180 in terms of where she stood in the class system of the high
Mhm.
school, almost. Um and then I feel like once they get that prom theme, we kind of speed run
Yeah.
to the end of the movie. So they really start to accelerate the Josie and Sam Coulson relationship. So they go to this carnival raising money for the prom. Mr. Coulson and Josie end up riding in the Ferris wheel together. He says some like really questionable things, considering he thinks she's a student, about how guys will be lining up around the block to date her in the future. And she
Yeah.
even says, "You're only saying that because you're my teacher," which,
Mm.
what?
Yeah.
And he says, rightfully, "I actually shouldn't be saying that because I'm your teacher," which, bingo, guy. Exactly. Well,
We
maybe cool it with the flirtatiousness over here.
yeah, we don't wanna have Chris Hansen show up at your house, all right,
Right,
pal? So
exactly. So they show that scene, then they show montages of like Josie and Mr. Coulson working together to paint stuff for prom and to get the music for prom. Like, they are very clearly showing you that that is the couple that has chemistry, not her and any of these jokels in the senior class.
Mhm.
So I feel like nothing really of, oh no, they have that house party when Rob says that he's taking, guys, buckle up. He's
Yeah.
taking a 16-year-old girl to
He's
prom.
23, I believe he says in the movie,
He's
or somewhere
somewhere.
in there.
Well, Josie Josie pulls him aside and says, "This is illegal in so many ways. Let me break it down for you." Um, and then Guy interrupts, and Guy asks Josie to go to prom, and she says yes.
Which was
So
another weird moment because there was like they were in the room. You're like, are they really about to like kiss? Like, what's
right.
happening?
Well, it's also, it's funny in that they're in Josie's room. You see her like trying to block all the pictures and turning over picture frames and stuff. But she finally gets what she always wanted. The most popular guy in school asks her to prom. So this is like when you're starting to feel really good. You're like, Josie did it. She still doesn't necessarily have a story, but we'll get there. And then they get to prom. And the outfits, please, let's break those down, because oh my god. You've got all the popular girls are dressed as different iterations of Barbie. But one of them's basically in a bathing suit at
Yeah,
prom.
yeah.
And it I don't know, that wasn't even the worst of what was out there.
Tortoise in the hair, which I
Tortoise
didn't
in the hair was
understand.
awkward.
Jesus, Mary, but Mary was pregnant.
Pregnant, yeah, yeah. So I guess it was Mary and Joseph,
Yeah, Mary and Joseph. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
technically, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You had the King and the Queen of Hearts, Rob and his 16-year-old girlfriend. That was risky business that they did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm like
Uh,
a 23-year-old dude entering a prom in his boxers.
it is boxers. Yeah,
Another
it's
red
nuts.
flag.
It's really insane. Now, I will say, I do think the idea of couples throughout history is a super cool
Yeah.
theme idea. And I also love the idea of prom not being your generic, like everybody's in a gown and a suit. I think that's a lot more fun. But I don't know, man. If I showed up to my high school prom in my fucking underwear and a button up shirt, I think somebody would have something to say about it.
I mean,
Just
before I go into the prom spiel here, I also want to bring up another 90s like hot item is always a surveillance van. Like there's
oh
always like some sort of surveillance van. I mean, I
yeah.
love it cuz I always wanted one as a kid, but with prom, like the more I'm seeing of these movies and thinking of my own prom, like wh- who really enjoys prom?
Unless you are one of the popular kids and you think you're in the running for a prom queen or a prom king or everybody loves you or whatever, I truly believe those are the only people who can even pretend they like prom. Because I agree with
If you're a prom queen or a prom king or have been one in your life, let us know.
you.
I
Sound
would
off.
love
Sound
I
off.
would
Yeah.
love to
We
have
need
an
to know.
interview.
Inquiring minds need to know.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yeah.
also, important reminder. So, much like with the rest of her high school journey, her whole office is watching her at prom live. She's got the camera on. Um, and they have bets on if she's going to win prom queen, what's going to happen, whatever. So, they're at prom. The nerdy kids enter as DNA, which is very funny.
Mhm.
Um, and it's your typical prom scene. Then probably the grossest scene in the whole movie. Tracy, Rob's 16-year-old girlfriend, is like, "I had champagne," and she's all over the place. And then she basically says she wants to lose her virginity to Rob, who is well beyond the age of 16 or anything close to it. And I think you can see in David Arquette's face, like, that is when he realizes, like, oh shit, I think I'm in over my head here.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm flattered. Why don't we go back out and boogie on the dance floor some more? Like, he can't even address what is going on with that. Mr. Coulson and the weird, like, Spanish teacher, I guess, from the beginning of the movie, I forget her name,
Yeah. Yeah.
they announced the prom court. So the three popular girls that Josie's been spending her time with are the prom princesses, which I have
I've
never
never
heard of
heard.
princesses and princes in a prom court ever, but they're the three princes. Some of the popular kids they show throughout the movie are the princes, and Rob is a prince, even though he's been at that school for seemingly like 2 weeks. It's all very whatever.
Yeah.
But then they announced prom king and queen. So our king is Guy, obviously, and our prom queen is Josie. So you kind of get the satisfaction you were hoping for in She's All That, where you really wanted Lainey to win prom queen and she didn't. Um, but we got to live it through Josie. Great.
Yeah.
What her and Guy? Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Before I go further into I realized you probably have something to say.
I, I'm trying to be as holstered as I can here, but I just not that I feel any sympathy for popular kids, but I feel like it's great that she got that full circle moment, but you also robbed the kids that were actually in high
Actually,
school.
students? Yeah, that's fair
Yeah.
too. That's fair too. Um, yeah, the more you look back on the whole her being in high school for such a short period of time and then she's prom queen and she's actually not a high school student, I think that's a really fair point too because, you know, any of those popular girls that you follow, they all probably wanted to be prom queen and they were
Yeah.
legitimate students. So,
As far as
but
like
anyway,
this film, they were like popular, but like they didn't seem to really care about being a queen.
yeah, yeah, that's probably the difference. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because even when do you remember when they're at the table at the prom and Drew Barrymore says to, I forget what not Jessica Alba, one of the other two girls. I forget if it's Kirsten or Kristen.
Hmm.
She says, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "I'm practicing my face for when I'm announced a princess in the prom court." Like,
She almost knew.
she didn't even assume that there was a shot she would be prom queen, which is very
Yeah.
odd. I don't know. That's a really good point. But say la vie, Josie's the prom queen. Woohoo! So she's at the table getting cake, and Mr. Coulson walks up and is saying, "You make a really beautiful prom queen." She goes, "Oh, is your girlfriend here?" He's like, "No, I'm alone." Coulson ends up asking Josie, "Can I have this dance?" And they have a dance together, which again, like, can you imagine a universe in which one of your teachers asked you to slow dance with them at prom? Because I can't fathom that. I really can't.
The whole situation, it just, I don't know. I was uncomfortable, I will say that. And then I'll let you keep going because I have
Yeah,
something
because
after. Yeah,
we're
yeah.
about to hit some pivotal moments here. But this is really the climax of the movie. So Josie delivers what, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful monologues in all of teen high school drama, comedies, dramedies, whatever you want to call them. And she says, "I don't care about being your stupid prom queen." She throws the crown across the room. And that's when she blows her cover. She tells them all she's a 25-year-old reporter. She came back and she's basically been killing herself trying to figure out how to impress them. Um, you know, and they were only nice to her after her brother Rob came in and posed as a student and made them all think she was cool. Um, but then she says, "Why would you mess with this girl? She's incredible. She befriended me, no questions asked." Um, and she basically goes on to say, "You all think that the biggest problems you'll ever have to face are what you're dealing with now in high school. There's a whole fucking world out there. Get over it. None of this means anything. And you all better start finding out who you are and finding yourselves now because none of this is going to matter in the long."
Yeah, which is a very strong and good point.
Yeah, I
This
mean
my
that speech, if nothing else, is an absolute highlight of the movie for me because it hits different when you're out of high school.
Yeah.
I think it's even more meaningful because you realize just how small and insignificant everything that went on in high school ultimately ended up being.
Matter. It doesn't matter. Like we said, we don't. I can't tell you who was a prom queen and prom king. I don't
Neither could
fucking
I.
know.
So as she's giving this speech, you see Mr. Coulson looking very upset. He walks out in the middle of it. They kind of show him like off to the side, just walking out. And then Josie runs outside, and George, who was the guy in the surveillance van that set her up with the camera and was sending the feed back to the office, runs up to her and says, "We lost the feed. What happened?" And she's like, "I'm sorry." And he said, "Please tell me you got your story on Coulson." And then he stands up from like behind a bush. So Josie has to confront that everything this man knew about her has been a lie. He basically admits he's been attracted to her for the whole entire movie. And she's like excited about this, and he's horrified by this, which I feel is the appropriate reaction. But,
It is, but then when he says like, "I can't look at you the same way," I'm like, that.
bro, you were the one hitting on a 17-year-old. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Let's not throw stones, sir, from our glass houses. Um,
It's like, why?
and
Because she's not
it's also weird
17.
to
She's
see,
actually 25. That's,
right.
you can't look at her the
That's
same way.
really all that's different. Because he even
Right.
says, like, I don't even know you anymore. It's like, you do,
I hate
though.
that line. Yeah.
She didn't even have a fake name. You
Yeah.
knew her name, and all of her personality quirks were authentic. The only thing that changed is now it is not weird for you to have a crush on her, and suddenly you're not into her anymore. So that's a little bit weird.
Yeah. Now you don't go to jail. So
Right.
like,
I mean, and listen, I trust me, I understand the what they were going for in that when a relationship or feelings are built on something that isn't true or is a lie or is fake, whatever, that
right.
fucks you up. Totally get it. And in that moment, had he said like, I really can't talk to you right now. I need time to think. I think that would have been a better play than I can't look at you the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
Sus.
It's sus.
Sus.
It is sus. I agree. We give that on the sus meter. That's pretty fucking high. Oh, Josie's fucking devastated. And then, as if to add insult to injury, she goes back into the office and Gus is basically ripping her to shreds. Like, you blew your cover. We have no story. We're both gonna get fucking fired because I trusted you to do this and you couldn't. So Josie says, "Listen, I did blow my cover and I did screw up, but you're gonna get an amazing story." So the final scene is her story being published and her narrating the story to us. And she talks more about her path to self-discovery, and it basically kind of tells the movie back to you from the ending.
Mhm.
And then where it deviates from the plot you've seen so far is she basically says, "In my path to self discovery, a certain teacher was hurt. I'm so sorry that I hurt you. If this man accepts my apology, I will be standing on the pitcher's mound at the championship baseball game for 5 minutes prior to the first pitch." And they basically count down the 5 minutes, and she's standing on the pitcher's mound. And while this is happening, you see Sam in his apartment, and it looks like he's packing to move. And turns out Coulson's running onto the field. He gives her her first real kiss on the pitcher's mound, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. She gets her. She's not. She's been kissed now. She's
Yeah.
not never been kissed anymore. She's been kissed. Um, and that's it. That's our plot.
So, rating wise, what are you going with?
So let's give some closing comments, and then I'm gonna get
Okay.
to my rating. Overall, this movie's got some issues for sure. But at the end of the day, I do think this is one of the more, for me, relatable characters in this era of movies. I don't know. I feel like Josie feels like a very real person. Like she feels like somebody I could have gone to school with and grown up with. She is what gives the movie so much rewatchability for me. Um, So it is not a perfect movie in reality, but it is perfect in my heart. Um, it's probably a clear sky for me. I love this movie. Who am I kidding? I love this movie. I should say this movie. Josie really resonates with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
No, nothing else about the movie really
Yeah.
does,
Maybe
but
that's a better
Josie as a
point. Yeah.
character does. Yeah, and I think Drew Barrymore was perfectly cast for this role. I think she did such a good job. Um, but yeah, that's my take on Never Been Kissed.
I don't know. I don't want to crush anything. It did not. I did not love it. I didn't find any of the characters really like believable. The brother was just awkward. The whole concept of him going back made
Yeah.
no sense to me. Josie, I just between like I understand you do bring up a valid point with like sometimes when you want something so bad you're willing to go to those lengths to do it. So I get that aspect of it. It's just like for as
You would
trauma
not be going back.
I would not be going back for like fuck no. And like all the guys in this movie were just so problematic. The Sam was just really uncomfortable for me. I do agree with you with her last monologue. I do think that's the strongest dialogue in the entire movie. Um, Even the ending with the baseball field, I thought was like a bit much. I mean, you could have even left it off with just the article, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
for me, it just I could not get behind any character. Um, I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I for me it was I gotta go Black Clouds. It was not.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't give
Oh,
it.
wow, wow.
I'm
Okay, all right. We
sorry.
are a complete. No, stop. But I am not surprised at all because I felt a very strong connection to a female character that I related strongly to, which carried a lot of my attachment to this movie.
Mhm.
And it is also wildly impacted by the nostalgia factor, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, like I grew up watching this. I have seen this movie 100 times. It's probably an exaggeration, but it's one of my personal, like, I don't want to say favorite movies, but it's a feel good movie. Like I put it on when I want to, go back to a simpler time or whatever. So I I was expecting you to say like cloudy, overcast. I wasn't expecting black clouds. That wow.
I was between Black Clouds and Cloudy, but I just overall like it's not a movie I would probably watch again,
Okay,
and
that's fair.
there's nothing that like really popped out at me.
Well, this was one of the interesting things about doing this look back is that we've got two very different perspectives coming at this. Like I will be colored by nostalgia, and a lot of these center around a female protagonist. So my feelings will depend on how strongly I related to the female protagonist in the movie.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
so I've been intrigued from the jump to see how your perspective would differ from mine because I knew I was going to be heavily biased going into these. I literally just spent an hour talking about how this movie's got problems, and it's still a clear sky for me because I can't see it any other way because I love it.
Which is
Um,
fine, and again, like, don't take away, like, if you're out there and you love this movie, love the movie, like, I'm not
yeah,
telling you to not
love it
yeah.
with all of your whole heart.
So there you have it, Never Been Kissed. Um,
Lots to take in. Lots to take in.
we do intend to watch 10 Things I Hate About You and Can't Hardly Wait, and if you've been staying tuned and maybe you wanna talk about it, just let us know. Hit us up on Instagram at popandpospod. Or you can reach out to us at by email at popcornandpossibilities@gmail.com. I think that's about wraps us up here. Steph, you have any last words?
No, this has been fun though. I really enjoyed. No, and I mean this. I really enjoyed hearing from your perspective what you thought of this questionably classic film, I'll say. It's classic for me. I don't know if anybody else defines it that way. But it was really fun. Thank you for watching it with me.
Yeah. After I watched it, I was like, I know Steph loves this movie, and I
Yeah.
I like don't want to break her heart.
No, no, listen. Everybody, this is the fun of watching movies is,
Right.
having your thoughts and getting to share those thoughts with other people and hear their thoughts as well. So, thank you for watching it even though you didn't love it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a fun journey so far. I'm Brian,
And I'm Steph.
and we are Popcorn and Possibilities.
Thanks for listening.